morning, everyone. Welcome to Talking Horses. Sarah Albadwi and Andy Serling. As we're here on a beautiful Friday, very nice out today. A little chillier than yesterday, but we're heading to Gotham Day, and it's supposed to be mid-50s tomorrow.
I know, it's
So
a treat. After
get
all
on
the
the
cold
A
weather.
train. Get on out here to visit us for Gotham Day. Always a fun day and sort of a hint that spring is coming. Daylight savings time starts next Sunday, I believe.
I think it's the sun.
So
Yes,
I'm
you're
looking
correct.
forward to being in the studio after 5:30 and 6 and have it not being completely dark, so that'll be nice.
It'll be crazy.
We got 9 races to talk about, a 10-race card, yes, tomorrow for Gotham Day, including all the stake races. The Busher and Gotham are fairly open. We'll see if Sarah has any opinions. We have a little time at the end of the show, but let's head over to Naira Bets right now and use the promo code MATCH200. It's new. It's new.
They've changed
Is
everything
that
around.
Chancellor McPatrick?
I think you're right.
Yeah. All right. So it's still Flavian.
Yes,
But
we have to
it's
keep
the
Flavian,
horse. No,
but now it's
I'm
just
good
a
with a
different
horse. I like it as long as there's a horse in there. Feels like him because he probably is covered with dirt every time he runs.
That looks
match,
like him.
Match 200. We'll match with $200 of your initial deposit. I saw him recently, actually.
Did you?
Yeah, he sends his best wishes to everybody.
Oh, good, good.
We have track stats. Check them out when you're over at Naira Bets as well. We also have 20% try bonus at Aqueduct today. Opt in over at Naira Bets for that. And that's probably Bank Frenzy, who will be in action tomorrow in our stymie. And what else do we have? We got a cross-country Big Five. I knew there was a reason I couldn't sleep last night. It was in anticipation of the cross-country Big Five, which starts at 3:40. All those races will be on. America's Day at the Races, and get your pen out. Now, the reality of this is you don't really need to, because if you never leave FS2,
You'll
you're
be all
there.
right.
But if you feel like going over to FS1 from 4:30 to 5 o'clock, because nothing could possibly go wrong there, I'm sure this will work out absolutely perfectly as it always does. You can go to FS1 from 4:30 to 5. That means my mom can watch from 4:30 to 5. She has FS1, but not FS2.
Oh, okay.
So I'll have to let her know because
She
you
has
know,
a half-hour window.
she has that half-hour window, and she's pretty excited. She's pretty excited about Oakland these days. She's been talking about it a lot.
Big player of the cross-country Big
Loves
Five.
the cross-country Big
I
Five. My
knew
mom,
it.
rarely a cross-country Big Five goes by without Lucy dipping in. Anyway, race number 1, maidens. We'll take a look at Material Girl, who's going to be the next Chad Brown favorite, and obviously based on her race here, she's very dangerous. My feeling was she was so much with the flow of this race, and considering how much more quickly she ran than her other races, she may win, but she's going out for a barn that's been a little bit chilly this winter, to say the least, and she's okay, but she's probably not a great bet if she goes off at a super short price in here.
That was my thinking as well. She was very much so with how the race was playing out from a dynamic standpoint, because the pace totally came apart, and I didn't love that the horse that finished second got started ahead of her, made that move before her, and just
mean, the
was
horse who
able to get
finished
to
third.
the spot.
The horse who finished third, she finished second.
Yes.
Right. But no, I know exactly what you mean. I
Princess
could not, I
Mischief got
completely
started
agree
ahead
with
of
you on
her,
that.
and
right.
I just-
And
I
she had
did-
trouble in the race as well.
She
She
did
ran
have
a
to take
much better race.
back a little bit. I just thought that she was one that wasn't going to get a similar kind of setup by any means in this spot, and she just seems like she's going to be overbet and still needs to take that slight step forward or come back with exactly the same race as she did last time.
Well, I mean, to be fair, if she runs her debut, she's a major player here. And if you think about her debut at 6.5 furlongs, she was closer to the pace. So I don't think, I mean, she was farther back last time because the pace was as strong as it was. And, you know, one thing about Manny, he is aggressive. He looks to get him in position. So I don't think she's a horse that's going to get lost out there.
No,
I just think she's a little dressed up off her last race. But she's still a major contender based on her debut because, I mean, the 61 buyer she ran is faster than any fig anybody has run here except for Willful Mama, who you've picked, who ran a 61 last time. And that was her debut back in October. So it's fair to say, you know, even if she didn't have her last race, let's just say she only had the 2 starts, she would be a legitimate contender here.
Sure,
It's
of
not,
course.
but I think the problem is she probably gets a lot of extra weight because of her last race, and her last race may not be a true indication of her actual ability. So while I do think she's kind of the horse to beat regardless, I don't need her at 6 to 5.
And this might be splitting hairs and not matter at all, but I don't love that for these connections, she hasn't really been bet in a couple of her starts. Wasn't really bet that much first time out. It was a short field second time out. She was a second choice to a favorite that made a lot of sense, but then 13 to 1 in that stakes So I get that there were other logical contenders in there, but if she was the Chad Brown
No.
type of,
She's never be. It's a valid point. She was 9-2 in her debut. I don't really mind that she's a big price in the stake because she should have been. It was a huge competitive field. But I think that's a fair point. I think that's very fair. It's not like she's ever been bet like she's
like
one
she
of
was
the
going to be
good
a
ones in the
superstar.
barn. Right. No,
Yes.
I think that's more than fair. It doesn't mean she can't win today.
Sure.
But it's not like anybody ever thought she was going to be something special, at least based, excuse me, on the wagering. So you
Right.
picked Willful Mama. You've got a lot more courage than me to give this horse another chance.
Yeah, I mean, the seconds are certainly adding up for this one, and second in her last two to some horses that I will say Straka got a pretty perfect trip in there, but Kara's Dreamweaver a little hard to come up with and improving so much so in that last start. I thought that she was the clear speed in here. Overall, what we've seen from others on the racetrack, I think
Really?
she's faster than some of the others in here that were able to have forward position. And I do like that first time Lasix today, so at least something is changing with her to hopefully add a little bit more stamina.
Yeah, I don't think she's the clear speed over Farmhouse. I mean, the question with Farmhouse is if she can get out of the gate. But I don't want to get too caught up in first-time starters that have gate issues because for the most part, those horses come back and they don't have gate issues the next time out. And considering the gate issues she had and where she ended up, with a clean break, I'm not convinced that Willful Mama will be in front of her. Now, whether or not that's relevant, I don't know, but I don't know that she's going to be the clear speed. Maybe, I'm not saying you're absolutely wrong. I think, though, with a clean break, I can't imagine that Jose's not going to go from the rail with Farmhouse. Now, thought we had a fair track yesterday. It seemed a little rail early, but as time went on, the track was fair, which is a welcome addition after last weekend's debacle. Right. I feel with Farmhouse that she's a horse that ran well enough in her first start after the break, and Lady Wisdom sort of ran off on her as the speed, that even with a clean break and any routine improvement, as you often see with Linda's second-time starters, she took money first time, small field or not. I thought she'd run a lot better today. I just seen enough of Willful Mama. I hear you. She can definitely win here. I wonder if St. Addie can run a little bit better, and I got a text from somebody I know who this horse is actually named for his daughter.
Oh, okay.
Which I thought was kind of cool. I thought she did a little bit of running in spots, and maybe speed was good last time. And maybe if you're looking for a price, she could run a little better.
Yeah, she could certainly take a step forward. So it's an open field. And I don't think you have to go with Material Girl by any means.
No, I agree with you on that. I mean, she can win, but I agree. We both have her second. She's just not. She's not that appealing at a super short price, especially considering. And I think, I don't want to keep harping on it, but we've seen Chad Brown's horses stable have very good winters year after year after year. And for whatever's going on, they're underachieving big time so far. And I think it is a relevant thing at this point.
Especially with short prices.
It's been going on for a while. And I mean, it'll change. And if you're going to have a bad run, having it in January and February is the right time to do it. But they're still not running well. Race number 2, you're dealing with a heavy favorite. We'll take a look at Broadway Lights winning last time for Brad Cox. I just see no reason that I'm supposed to try to beat this horse, Sarah.
I'm with you. All of her dirt races are faster than what anyone's done, is save the last race for Central Casting, and that was a big step forward for her. It seemed like in this spot with Broadway Lights, all 4 of the other horses wanted to have some forward position. She was able to just take back slightly and just ended up being too much for them. And even her race 2 back, her race 3 starts ago, they're all just faster consistently unless Central Casting comes up with that same last race.
And the time forward pace projector has her last at a favorable speed race, especially with a scratch of the 6 in here. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying that she's going to be that far out of it. And the other problem with Central Casting, who, and I think at this point there's only 4 horses. I think 5 won are Sarah and my picks. We don't need 4 picks in a 4-horse field. We don't need 4 picks in any race, but that's what people want because we have superfectas, despite morons on the internet that somehow think we're trying to take credit for our 4th pick and winning. I've yet to see anybody at NYRA do that. If they do, they're going to get a tongue lashing. But on the internet, apparently, we do that. Thing about Central Casting is not only is the figure last time an aberrant number for her in her entire career, the winner, 59, 59, 84. And maybe the winner's a horse that the buyers were a little light on, but I don't think they were 25 points light. And I'm not saying Central Casting can't win. I think you agree. She is clearly the other horse in here. But I kind of want to see it again. And even seeing it again is not clear that she's going to beat Broadway Lights.
Right, and also looking at her last race and her being part of a coupled entry and just expecting her to come back with that same effort in order to win here, it's just not a wager that I want to take against a horse who's consistently run numbers faster.
Right. I'd rather take 4 to 5 on this horse than 8 to 5 on the one. And I
Agreed.
think, right or wrong, we agree on this race. Race number 3. Sorry, I have something caught in my throat here. Let's take a look at. There ain't much to look at in this race. What is the replay? Oh, the replay I have involves your horse. So let's go back 3 races on Magic Beach and 2 races for All of a Sudden, or 3 races for All of a Sudden League when they ran second and third. I got to tell you, I'm not impressed with what I've seen from either one of these horses since that race. And I'm curious as to why you want to give Magic Beach another chance. I've got her second. I'm not saying she can't win or he can't win, but I don't know, man.
The last race was bad. I mean, there's no denying that.
Race 2 back wasn't good either.
The race 2 back wasn't great either, but I will say blinkers do go on for this one. And the stumble out of the gate was kind of like the horse splayed out in front before regaining balance and rushed up and then had to check in behind horses. And then he just gave up completely.
Yeah, no, the horse was eased. I agree. Kendrick eased this horse.
I want to be a little bit more forgiving of that race versus thinking that this horse is just absolutely going backwards. And that may still be the case because that race 2 back, as you said, not quite as fast as the 1-3 back that we took a look at. First time blinkers made and claiming on the dirt. Linda Rice, small sample size, but 27%, $1.99 ROI. Only one of those in off the turf start past 5 years. So small sample size, she does do well adding blinkers to horses at this level.
The problem with this horse, and like, listen, I've got her second, I'm not. The problem with her is that she's going to be short in here. And she ran the turf twice, and then Linda, as we got towards turf season was over, ran in the dirt, and she ran okay in a sloppy track. And then, okay, dismiss her last race. I can't bet her off her race 2 back. That's my problem with this horse. Now, I don't like anybody in here. If Big Ego finally wins a race, I saw David pick this horse. He's got a lot of heart to pick that horse because I can't give him more chances.
I agree.
Fine, a name is sort of silly. And all of a sudden, Lee is kind of in that department as well. And what was his big excuse last time out? He's got Big Ego stalking outside of him, and even Big Ego beat him.
Who hung so badly, looked like he was going to go right by and then stayed right with him, but still able to finish ahead of this horse who I thought had an okay time of it on the front end in that race and favored over the last 2 and not able to get the job done. So I just didn't want this one as the favorite yet again.
And that's why I picked the 3 in here, Break the Fall, because if you get rid of the last race, and we'll talk about that in a minute, he's running races that are fast enough to win. Even his return race with the 46 buyer off the layoff is good enough to win this race. Last time out, you're talking about a horse that was super wide. There's a real possible edge towards inside runners. I don't think it was extreme, but I think there was enough of a bias to say with his ridiculous wide trip. And another race where they basically just gave up on him at the end. It's not as though Manny didn't try. He tried hard, but he was just out in the middle of the track and nowhere, and I'm just wondering if he was second off a layoff, coming back 3 weeks after that race. Now he's had over a month since the race. He's got, 32 days since then. Feels like he's the kind of horse that third off a layoff probably runs his best race, and I just thought he'd probably win today.
And stretching back out, I like him getting a little bit more distance too. So
we'll see what happens with him. We'll see what happens in race number 3. Race number 2. Well, I mean, race number 2.
4.
4, sorry. This is not the race. I found this race to be a real mishmash of horses. I'll let you talk about purpose, but I'm a little bit skeptical of this horse. Not that, in other words, I have second, but I don't know.
I think everyone has to be based on the fact that we don't see this horse run pretty much ever. And I remember picking her when she was entered on the 12th of January and ended up being a scratch there. And there's clearly some issues with this horse staying on the racetrack as she's run 3 times as a 4-year-old and always had big gaps in between those races.
Interestingly enough, almost exactly 3 months for every race. Now it's 4 months to today's race. It is kind of funny.
Yeah. And I mean, look, in her stakes race, a 2 back at Finger Lake, she was no threat to the top 2 horses, but those are stakes horses. And that was a day where Caldwell Loves Gold was forwardly placed, as well as Sweet Brown Sugar. She broke slow. It was kind of that merry-go-round race where nobody really did anything in terms of making a move or changing places, and I just thought that she's one that we know she can run well for us because that's all she's done so far.
Yeah, no, listen, she's a very logical. She's 2-1 in the morning line for a reason. I mean, and the other thing is, calling an audible may win, but she's kind of running out of chances. She's run 11 times, and Yeah, she's run some races. Her recent effort's not that good. I can't make a case, and I don't think you can either, for the number 3 Launchura. Gallant, Greta, I mean,
Is she even a dirt horse?
I don't know what she is. I thought her debut was okay overall, but her last race to me was massively disappointing, and I'm not sure what about her last race suggests she gets better with an extra furlong on the dirt. And once again, not a horse that's impossible. I don't think
And
either
has
one of us
speed,
will be
but
shocked if she does well. But yeah, I don't think she's going to be alone in front. Isn't Sky Runner supposed to go? And listen, Sky Runner's lightly raced. I don't like her, but she is lightly raced. And, I go back to Luminique, and one thing that caught my eye, struck me about Luminique last time is she took absolutely no money coming off the 10-month layoff. You got a horse that Rick Dutrow claims for Bobby Roboto, and the numbers of, it's not a big sample size, but the number of horses claimed from that barn are pretty strong, and doesn't take any money and doesn't do any running. I thought the track was reasonably fair, maybe a slight edge being forward, but I don't think she was compromised. But it was a wet track as well, and she hadn't run well in a wet track in her second start. The waiver, now we've got her in a race where it's maiden optional claiming. They're not looking to run her for a tag at this point. I just feel like she's the horse. If anybody in here is going to step up and run better than they're supposed to on their paper, it's going to be her. So I'm going to bet her. I don't think she's going to be 5. I'll put it this way. If I'm right that she's live, I don't think she'll be 5 to 1. I'll still bet her at 5 to 1. And I'm not in love with her, but I guess mostly I just didn't like anybody else. And I hear you with Purpose. I've got her second, but I'm a little skeptical of her.
yeah, and you make a very valid argument about Luminique, who there is that upside still with her versus some of these others who were kind of figuring out who they are, and it's not anybody that you really want to take at a shorter to mid-price.
I don't, and I look at Luminique, and I think this is a horse that a year ago in her first start ran a figure that would win here. So somewhere in there is that number, and I'm going to trust in Rick to get her to run her better race. Race number 5, this is, Linda, this is your scratch of the day, and a horse that was, I imagine she was
It's
a
the
heavy
scratch
favorite in
of
the
the
line.
day.
Well, this is Linda has to have one horse scratched on the card that I'm not going to vent, but I'm frustrated by the scratches on today's card because there's a common link to all of them, and the common link is that they're all private vets. Having said that, Glint won't play, and I guess Tomacon becomes a very logical horse. I was surprised David had him so low, but I guess now he'll be the favorite, though I'm skeptical of that.
Yeah, I mean, look, he just makes a lot of sense
Dropping.
dropping in for the lowest level that he's been in. His best race was in for that $40,000 tag, non-winners of 2. That was his only race going over a fast main track at a mile distance. And so he just makes a lot of sense being able to run a race similar to that, dropping into this spot where he's up for the $25,000 tag. And I think that his last race, that was a day where the inside speed was advantageous. On the 26th of January, the second place finisher returned to win. With the fourth place finisher running second in that race, and they both regressed only one.
Yeah, they ran their numbers.
So they justified the numbers for that race. So I just thought the class relief now, especially with Glint out, he just makes a lot of sense.
I have no argument with that whatsoever. I think the horse you have to make a decision about, and obviously you've got a big scratch, so everybody's price is going to come down considerably. But David had Golden Purchase as the longest shot on the board. Is a horse claimed away from Eduardo Jones, who was 1 for 134 last year. Is this horse really going to be the longest shot on the board? Because he's also got figures that make him a player in here. And we'll take a look at his race 2 back where he finished second. I'll tell you right now, I thought he's a horse, and I read these races wrong, and David reads them right all the time. I thought he was a horse that would be a reasonably short price in here because of the claim. And it's tough to sign his claim from these barns, but I looked up the numbers. 4 for 17 claimed from Eduardo Jones. Low ROI because they get bet. But if this horse doesn't get bet, why can't he win this race?
Well, I think it's because you have others that are dropping in class versus he's stepping up. But I will say it is interesting that after all this time, somebody does dip in to claim him. And it is Rudy, who we know can move horses up off of a barn that has lower percentages.
He's 1 for 46. He is a tough horse to swallow. But I just find it hard to believe that nobody's going to be interested in betting him off of that trainer change. Maybe I'm wrong, but he's going to be on my tickets.
Yeah, he has an interesting angle, but I think that just overall, from a class standpoint, I get why he ends up being a price on the line.
The horse I'll put in the winner's circle, and I'm not saying he can't win because he could win, is Iron Man Ira. I'm not a fan of this horse. I thought he had a little bit of a track edge, just a little bit December 1st, and I don't know. For the most part, hasn't he been massively disappointing? And
Yeah.
he didn't have the best of trips last time, and a little bit against the track as well, much like the one. But my God, he was terrible in there.
He did not run well at all, and I agree that there was some advantages going his way for that victory. Just first time in for a tag, it's a decent sized drop for him, and he does have some early speed that could help him in this spot as well.
Yeah, no, he's not impossible. You
I don't
like him
love
more
him,
than
but-
I do. I don't know. I just feel like he's a horse that's just been more disappointing than anything else. But obviously in this field, especially in the scratches, he can win. We'll take a break. We'll be back with the late pick 4 after a few moments.
Horse racing? Check. Weekly promotions? Got 'em. Huge payouts? You bet. With Naira Bets. Download the app today and bet on any track, anywhere, anytime with live HD horse races, betting tips and tutorials, expert picks, and more. You bet with Naira Bets. Join now for a new member bonus at NairaBets.com.
Welcome back to Talking Horses. Sarah and Andy, race number 6 on today's card, and we're going 1.25 miles in this race. I'll tell you one of the things that as we take a look at the horse you and I picked last time out, Cut the Cord, where I thought he ran very well in a race that in a lot of ways kind of fell apart except for Cut the Cord. I look at the pace projector, and they've got Colomillo clearly in front of Cut the Cord with Street scratched. Do we really think that's going to happen in 1.25 miles?
No, I don't.
And didn't Colomillo just walk on the front end last time?
And isn't Cut the Cord a better horse overall with his record?
Gee, I thought so. Wouldn't it be-
I picked him last time. You're not getting the same price today, but I think he just lays over this field.
the distance is the question.
Well, it's a question for everybody.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I'm saying, but it's an overall question.
Sure.
But I agree. I think he's the best horse in the race. I know he's 8 to 5 in the morning line. We're not telling you anything you don't know. But sometimes handicapping is about finding the best horse. And the other problem that I had, Sarah, was I didn't really love anybody else in here. I'm not saying Colomillo can't win. Why am I supposed to like him? He's had pretty soft trips in his races, and I feel like he's got a better horse off his flank in today's race. And if he goes slow, well, I just think Cut the Cord's a better horse than he is.
Right, and I think he'll go by because he's shown that he can be a tactical type as well, and he can be forward. He can sit off another horse as well. And when you look at a horse that I thought was one of his main competitors in here, he has the opposite running style, and that's Strapped, who's going to be rallying on late. And I thought he ran very well last time, but is he really going to be able to produce that same sort of run at this distance and really be able to contend with a horse that I think is better than him anyway, that's going to be ahead of him if we end up
Let's
taking
take a break
look at
while
it.
we find the tape of Strapped. Did we lose it, Eddie?
Oh, here
There
it is.
we go. I agree with you. And the other thing I'd say about Strapped in this race, while it was perfectly legitimate that he was placed first, and I understand the winner of the race came back to win quite easily the other day, though I think he ran a lower figure, right? He was a little against the track in doing so, is he was taking advantage of a pace that totally collapsed. And arguably, Frizzante probably made a little bit, as it turned out, I'm not knocking the ride, probably it was a little bit of a premature move, and he was coming in collapse, and I think you and I both feel like the pace in here is a little bit murky, and he may not get the same setup where it's a contentious pace.
Right, and really thinking, okay, we don't necessarily have a lot of confidence in how this pace is going to play out, but I don't think it's going to be particularly fast.
When is it?
That's a fair point as well.
What about Prove Worthy on the outside? I mean, he does like a distance. I just think he's been incredibly disappointing in his last couple of starts.
And I think overall he's just been facing horses that don't really stack up to a horse like Cut the Cord or even Strapped, really. I mean, he's been finishing second in some spots that he's been favored over his last couple of starts, and I just think that overall the form that those horses are in versus what he could be facing in here, this kind of looks to me like a little bit of a step up.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Race number 7. Race number 7. Sorry, I have no videos for this race because there's just none to find. I think we both agree. We'll talk about Light the Way.
Just seems like the clear speed in this spot, and I think that the race that he comes out of, yes, the place that he was on the racetrack and where he was, it was advantageous that day, but save for that race that he comes out of because the pace started to come apart.
He wasn't right on the rail either. He was close to it, but I think he was all along.
And that was a contentious pace that Crazy Mason won, and then Crazy Mason won again, and looks like he's really come into some serious
I don't know
form.
how long that run's going to last, but my God, I mean, that win
last
by
race
him
was
the other day was pretty
impressive.
cool. I mean,
Yeah.
he
looked
ran by those
dominant.
horses like somebody shot him out of a cannon.
Yep.
I don't disagree, and we saw Radio Red come back and win, and it was a very contentious pace. I agree with you, and the other thing is that the theoretical potential of their speed that you have second and I have third for our buddy Lee. I don't know what to do with Silo Ridge. You know, I mean, he was bumped a little bit at the start, and kind of, I don't know if I'd say bumped, just sort of. He kind of, I have him leaping up more than anything else, but I mean, he never had any horse at any point in that race, and now they're putting him in for a tag, and he was coming off a year layoff for that race, and I think these horses do have a tendency to run okay, and the Mott numbers for Simon Tag aren't terrible, but man, he was bad last time.
It was his worst race
And
by
now
far.
he drops.
And he had a string of races that would make him very
win.
competitive at a different level than this, and then
win.
he's just not, it seems, going to replicate that kind of number. So maybe they're putting him in a logical spot to be competitive, but it's just not a move that inspires a lot of confidence, especially at a short price.
Yeah, my other horse in this race is the number 2, Al Maik, who was purchased privately, I assume, from Shadwell, and given to Jamie Ness. Jamie Ness, it's interesting with Jamie Ness, his numbers, trainer switches and dirt routes are just off the charts. And in sprints, they're actually not that great. He's 22% with a $1.48 ROI. It's kind of interesting. There's a huge dichotomy between his two. He's like 32%, like 30, more than like 35% or something, because it's less starters, with a big ROI with routers. But he's got races that are fast enough. It's going to Ness. He has a bad last race. But what I don't know, and I'd love to know, is what they paid for him. You know, was he a complete giveaway? So running for 40, did they pay more? I just wish that you could find out what they paid for him in there. But I thought he was a very interesting horse, another one, because I don't love Lee's horse. And I guess Prince of Truth is a bit dangerous in here. My problem with him is, and I bet him quite a few times, while he's got some fast races, more often than not, he doesn't run that well. And I know the pace held together last time. I didn't think he did any running last time.
I don't really think he's done a lot of running throughout his career. I think he's just run into some good fields and run sort of in place and been there to finish in the trifecta, but I don't feel like he's one that I've seen this big run from him or seen him overcome anything or have any major excuses for the propensity to finish third.
This horse has the look, and I don't know this, I could ask Linda Rice, but this horse to me has the look of a horse that Linda's probably wanted to run in this condition or even lower for quite a while, and finally was able to convince the owner, we've got to stop running this horse in the allowance races. He can't compete there. I could be wrong, but knowing Linda, she has such a good understanding of her horse's value and where they can win. I just find it hard to believe she just kept banging her head against the wall, running him in races where he wasn't fast enough. And I looked up some numbers overall. Non-maidens, first time for a tag in the dirt. Linda's just 6 for 29, 21%, $1.23 ROI. When sprinters, 3 for 18, $1.13 ROI. So in general, when she's dropping down, she's dropping them because they're just not that good, and they're not even necessarily good enough to win where she's dropping. So I think he can win, but I don't need him as the 3-to-1, morning line sort of co-favorite.
Yeah, I agree. I think that
And he can win.
I'd rather go with Silo Ridge because he has races that are faster, at least somewhere in the past.
That's fair. We'll see what happens in race number 7. Race number 8. We'll take a look. Well, we don't have a video. Give us a second on the videos, but Uncle Jim is obviously the horse to beat. He's even money. I'll let you talk about him.
I mean, there's just not much clever about this whatsoever. He's a horse that I think is just kind of not top tier Brad Cox runner, and they're putting him in a spot that he looks like he ends up being the standout in. He's coming out of a stakes race that was won by Captain Cook with a fast number. I think it was a 94 buyer that he ran that day, and I know that Saudi Arabia didn't go well for Cyclone State, but he had some fast races here. So I think just the company that he's kept overall over his last 2 races, he's getting some class relief coming into this spot, and he's also getting that cutback in distance that I think will help him too. And I just couldn't make a big case for someone else.
Yeah, I won a lot of money betting the Cyclone State would be last in Saudi, so that worked out well for me. And anybody that took 2 to 1 on him should probably have their head examined. That was a true Ripley's moment. I don't disagree, and it does seem like in the ebb and flow of the barn, the Cox barn is back to having their horses running very well. Now, he is who he is, and that's why he's running. I think your point is absolutely valid. I know they paid a lot of money for him. You know, that's the way it goes in this game. He's not worth $240,000. He's worth 50 at most, and somebody wants to claim for 50, go right ahead, and I'm sure they'll be fine with that. And I don't really see him as a horse that I would want. Now, I just don't think he's that good. He is the horse to beat. I don't want him in even money, and you know me, let's go to Finger Lakes. I can't resist Dave Duggan. Now, this is not a private purchase. This is just a trainer change, but I don't love betting horses off of big numbers at Finger Lakes because they don't always reproduce themselves. And, you know, I'm not sure. It's very tough to know who they're really running against in here, but this was a big, fast race for him. And I don't mind they're running him for 50. They paid $35,000 for him. He's not winning the Mike Lee. He's probably not winning a non-winners of one New York bred race. I just sort of think he's kind of running where he's supposed to be running. And I look at this field. Maybe I'm wrong about him. I'm not a big fan of anybody. I mean, Jerry's out's obviously not impossible in here. But I wasn't that afraid of anybody. And, you know, I've had success with Dave Duggan's horses, so at a price I picked him.
Yeah,
I don't love him, but I just didn't feel like picking the one.
I have him third. I mean, he has that big last race. He's making a couple of changes in here. First time Lasix, trainer switch, coming in and for his first start as a 3-year-old. And I don't think that he really finished ahead of much, and they haven't really come back to do much in that last race. But I agree with you. I don't really see a horse that's going to be so terrifying to him in this spot. So even if you take away a couple of buyer points from that last race, he's still, I think, fast enough to be right in the mix.
I agree. And, you know, Tappert's temper, we'll take a look at him because he got that big fig last time. I don't know what to do with him. I mean, I know what to do with him. I'm not betting him. But he did run a fast number last time, and I don't want to completely ignore it. And even if you think it's a little bit high, as you said with the other horse, and I agree with you, if he's 5 points slower, he's a contender. The problem is every other race he's ever run is not even in the vicinity of being competitive.
No, and I think that this field, there are some horses behind him that I don't particularly think a lot of, and he just gets nailed on the wire here by Just Clarity, who got a great ride. But the only thing that I can say for him making that big change and stepping up is that that was his first time on Lasix sprinting. Maybe he's possibly a horse that does better on Lasix and is at the right distance, but I don't want to take him off of a 1 number when the rest of his races don't really compete here.
I agree with you. Race number 9, closing out today's card. And we'll take a look at Frankie Hiccups on Halloween, running second. I don't know what happened last time. Obviously, something went wrong, and he drops a little bit off that race, and you are dealing with a favorite that's coming off of her being eased. Having said that, if he's able to run this race or his first race, he's about as likely a winner in this race as there is on today's entire card.
Right, and speed towards the inside. Maybe just there was something amiss last time out. A little bit of time off. Seems to be working quickly coming into this spot. Bullet Drill coming in. And you know that where this horse is going to be, in all likelihood, early on, if she's going to produce an effort that's at least somewhat similar to the ones that have been better for her in the past.
Well, I don't think anybody's foolish enough to actually claim off times in the paper. To me, that workout would suggest that he's trying to tell people this horse is fine, please claim me. That's what I actually think. But I have no argument this horse is the horse to beat, but I wanted to pick against him. You'll have to explain I Am Ev to me, other than unless, I mean, I understand why my friend Ev would bet this horse, but I can't understand why anybody else would. But go ahead.
I'm hoping for improvement like many of these in here who are still lightly raced, and just the barn is going extremely well. Past 2 months here, 35%, $2.96 ROI, 59% in the money, wet track last time. Debut can always be forgiven. Do I think this horse did that much running? No, not at all. But if this horse can take another step forward, I just wanted somebody else at a price because I don't want to take a horse that's coming off an eased effort. And I didn't really want to take Tower 22 on top. And so at least with this one, I could make the case maybe takes that step forward today at a little bit of a price.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Tower 22 is obviously very logical. I like Mary and the Irons in here. I actually, this horse ran pretty well last time, all things considered. I know it wasn't a very fast race, but there's an argument that speed was okay on that track. This horse had absolutely no speed, but was very sluggish at the break in there, dropping back. And I actually think in a sloppy track, this horse showed that she can do a little bit of running. And I think she's a very likely candidate to improve today. So I like Mary and the Irons to close things out. Today's card. Sarah, thank you so much. Have you looked at the Gotham? Do you have an opinion on the Gotham?
I'm a big Sand Devil fan, but I think that this is a real test, and there's some good quality horses in here, Sacrosanct, of course, being one of them, but there are some up-and-comers in the rest of the field, and I think that at first glance for his last race, we thought that he regressed a little bit, but he ran a number that was very credible, and I like him getting more ground as well. So I think that he's a likely... Yes, I think he's a likely winner, but I can understand if somebody wants to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I wouldn't call him a likely winner. I think he is probably the horse to beat. I'm a little bit skeptical. I think there's a possibility the pace gets a little hot in here. Now he's a horse to go fast. We'll see what happens. Interesting race. We'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow. You can head over to Naira Bets. If you're not a member, use the promo code MATCH200. We'll match for $200 of your initial deposit. Check out track stats when you're over there as well. And when you're at Naira Bets as a member, log in and opt in. We have a 20% trifecta bonus on today's races here at Aqueduct. There's Bank Frenzy. We'll be running in the Stymie tomorrow. We've got a cross-country Big 5, 2 here, 3 at Oaklawn. All those races will be on America's Day at the Races from 3 to 6:30 at FS2. FS1 will join us from 4:30 to 5. Thanks again, Sarah. Thanks to you for watching. Let's head over upstairs to Chris Griffin for a reprise of the Scratches and Changes.
Horse racing? Check. Weekly promotions? Got them. Huge payouts? You bet. With Naira Bets. Download the app today and bet on any track, anywhere, anytime with live HD horse races, betting tips and tutorials, expert picks, and more. You bet with Naira Bets. Join now for a new member bonus at NairaBets.com.